So this is the humans' ancient fleet? What a fucking shit show. The alien admiral sneered as his scouting frigate exited warp above the Ort cloud. Roger stood on the bridge of his flagship Retribution, all bloodshot eyes and exhaustion, patched wounds hissing in recycled air. Gazing out at the paltry remnants of humanity's armada, battered hulls drifting between asteroids and ice, his thoughts raged with the desperation of a species on the brink. Humanity was losing bad, real bad. A third of their systems had fallen to the ruthless Pakled Empire. Whole planets bombarded until continents cracked open, cities reduced to molten craters, millions dead or enslaved in the span of months. Sadistic Emperor Rhaegor wanted Earth's children as trophies. Now Roger's fleet was all that stood between the pack leads and extinction. But his warships were shot to shit, his crews half dead or shell-shocked. Each Pakled dreadnought could atomize them without breaking a sweat. So Roger lured them here, to this cosmic boneyard at the edge of the solar system, because a legend persisted through the centuries, whispered tales of ancient warships hidden away from the first civil war that almost ended expansion. Left in stasis, forgotten relics of death from a more primitive time. Maybe those giant ugly scrap heaps could somehow reactivate, rise up and unleash archaic hell on the Pakled vessels, buy humanity a chance to rearm, rebuild, retaliate. Roger had bet everything on it. Trillions of lives hung on some fucking ghost story. The Retribution's sensors pinged as Pakled signatures dropped out of warp. For a long second, the universe held its breath. Hundreds of ships poised to paint the stars with blood. Roger gripped the rail, knuckles pale as an old man's skull. One way or another, this ended here. Roger focused his bloodshot eyes on the sensors as the Retribution accelerated hard towards the location of the ancient ships. Divert every scrap of power to the engines. I want the reactor redlining. We need to reach those ships before the Pakled. The deck plates shuddered and groaned as the Retribution's sublight drive strained at maximum output, the inertial dampeners barely compensating. Roger gripped the armrests of his command chair, willing his battered ship to go faster. Suddenly alarms blared as a massive contact emerged from warp space directly ahead. A Pakled dreadnought, easily dwarfing the Retribution. Its weapons were already powering up, targeting solutions locked on the human ship. "Shit, that's the Decimator! Emperor Rhaegor's flagship!" Lieutenant Hawkins called out, his face pale. "They'll tear us apart." Roger stared at the looming Leviathan, a cold rage settling in his gut. The same Pakled bastard who had ordered the bombardment of Earth, the butchering of millions, now stood between him and a chance to save his species. "Sir?" Hawkins looked at him in disbelief. "You heard me," Roger snarled. "We buy time for the fleet no matter the cost. They have to reach those ships." The Retribution shuddered as the first salvo from the Decimator slammed into its shields. Roger watched the energy readings flicker dangerously. They wouldn't hold for long against this kind of firepower. "Return fire with everything we've got. Target their shield generators and weapons." The Retribution's guns opened up, lancing out with beams of superheated plasma and kinetic slugs. The two ships circled each other, trading devastating broadsides that lit up the void. Explosions blossomed along the Retribution's hull as the Decimator's fire tore through weakening shields, shredding armor. Bulkheads buckled, atmo lines ruptured, consoles exploded in showers of sparks. Roger stared at the Decimator on the view screen, his eyes hard as steel. They weren't going to survive this, but they could still hurt the Pakled, hurt them badly. "Divert everything to engines and weapons," he said quietly. "We're going to ram the bastards." As the Retribution poured fire into the Decimator's shields, the Pakled ship's defenses finally buckled. A series of secondary explosions rippled across its hull, venting atmosphere and debris. "Their shields are down," Hawkins crowed. "We've got a shot." A full spread of quantum torpedoes leapt from the Retribution's launchers, tearing through the Decimator's unprotected hull and detonating deep inside. The dreadnought shuddered, explosions blossoming along its length like obscene flowers. Then, With a soundless scream of tortured metal, it split apart. At the same instant, the Retribution's abused reactor finally went critical. Roger had a momentary glimpse of a blinding white light consuming the bridge. On the Dauntless's sensors, the Retribution and Decimator vanished together, lost in the fury of a newborn sun. Captain Singh sagged in his chair, his dark eyes fixed on the expanding ball of plasma that had once been Roger's ship. "All ships, continue course to the Oort cloud," he said hoarsely. "We finish this. For the Admiral. For Earth." His jaw clenched as he gazed at the distant glimmer of ancient hulls. Roger's sacrifice would not be in vain. As the Dauntless and the remaining human ships raced towards the ancient fleet's coordinates, a blaring alarm cut through the tense silence on the bridge. "Captain, urgent transmission from the Deep Space Listening Post," the comms officer reported, his face pale. "The Pack-led Armada is converging on our location. They outnumber us 10-1. Singh's hands tightened on the armrests of his chair. The loss of the Decimator had only enraged the Pack-led, it seemed. They were out for blood. "ETA?" Singh's mind raced. They were so close to the ancient ships, but would they have enough time? He opened a fleet-wide channel. "All ships, full speed to the Oort cloud. We're going to be cutting it damn close." As the fleet approached the coordinates, the ancient ships came into view on the long-range sensors. Massive, hulking vessels of a design no one had ever seen, encased in layers of ice that had accumulated over centuries. "My God," Singh breathed, "they're real." As the fleet pulled alongside the ancient behemoths, crews in EVA suits launched towards them, magnetic grapples pulling them to the icy hulls. They cut through airlocks, clambered into dark corridors lit only by helmet lamps. On the Dauntless, Singh watched the life sign readings as his people spread through the ships, heading for the bridges and engineering bays, following schematics that had been little more than legends until now. Suddenly the comms erupted with excited voices. "The AIs are identifying us as authorized personnel. They're beginning reactivation sequences." Singh leaned forward, hardly daring to breathe. On the view screen, the ancient ships started to come to life one by one. Running lights flickered on, illuminating their massive frames. The hum of power reactors, silent for so long, thrummed through the hulls. Weapon systems initialized, turrets and launch bays emerging from beneath sliding panels. Singh had never seen anything like them, not even in the most advanced modern warships. The view screen filled with the sight of hundreds of enemy ships, a wall of metal and weaponry bearing down on them. The pack-led ships opened fire immediately, lances of energy stabbing out towards the ancient vessels. Singh gripped the arms of his chair as the weapons impacted against the ancient ship's shields, flaring brilliantly under the onslaught. For a heart-stopping moment, he feared they wouldn't hold, that the AIs hadn't had enough time. But then the ancient ships unleashed hell, a devastating barrage of advanced weaponry, the likes of which Singh had never seen, leapt out to meet the Pack-led fleet. Beams of incandescent energy sliced through Pack-led ships like a scythe, vaporizing dozens in seconds. Projectiles of unknown composition shredded hulls, tore through shielding like it wasn't even there. The Pack-led ships reeled under the counterattack, their formation disintegrating as they scrambled to evade the deadly fire. But the ancient AIs were relentless, picking off the enemy vessels with ruthless precision. Singh saw his chance. He opened a channel to the fleet. "All ships, form up on the ancients. Let's hit them with everything we've got." The human ships, dwarfed by their newly awakened allies, surged forward to join the fight. Their weapons, pitiful in comparison, nonetheless added to the maelstrom engulfing the Pack-led. And together, the combined human and ancient fleet pressed the attack, driving into the heart of the enemy formation. The Pack-led ships fought back desperately, but they were outmatched and outgunned. One by one, they fell, torn apart by the onslaught. Singh's eyes widened as the Titan's AI, Prometheus, appeared on the view screen. The AI's avatar was a shimmering construct of light, its features stern and angular. "Captain Singh," Prometheus said, its voice resonating through the bridge, "the Titan possesses a weapon that can turn the tide of this battle, the Godslayer. Singh leaned forward, his heart pounding. What is this Godslayer? A railgun of immense power, capable of destroying entire planets, Prometheus explained. But it requires a vast amount of energy to charge, leaving the fleet vulnerable in the process. Singh's mind raced, weighing the risks. The Pakled were pressing their attack, ships exploding under the relentless barrage. They needed a game-changer. How long to charge the Godslayer? Singh asked. Approximately 15 minutes, Prometheus replied. Singh nodded grimly. Then we buy you that time. Helm set course for the nearby gas giant. We'll use its magnetic field to mask our energy signatures. As the fleet fell back towards the swirling clouds of the gas giant, Singh opened a channel to all ships. Form a defensive perimeter around the Titan. We must protect her at all costs while the Godslayer charges. The human ships took up positions around the massive ancient vessel, their shields overlapping, to create a wall of energy. The pack-led ships pursued, weapons blazing, their fire splashing against the combined shields. Suddenly a new wave of contacts emerged from warp. Pack-led reinforcements, led by a dreadnought even larger than the Decimator had been, the Subjugator. The pack-led ships shifted their focus, concentrating fire on the Titan. The ancient ship's shields flared, absorbing the punishment, but Singh could see they were weakening rapidly. Prometheus status on the Godslayer, Singh demanded. Charging 60% complete, but our shields are failing, the AI reported, its avatar flickering. Singh slammed a fist on his armrest. The Titan couldn't fall, not now. He made a decision, one that would haunt him for the rest of his days. All human ships form a closer perimeter around the Titan. Absorb the enemy fire. Buy the Titan the time it needs, no matter the cost. One by one, the human ships moved in, placing themselves between the Titan and the pack-led onslaught. Their shields flared, then buckled, hulls rupturing under the relentless fire. Escape pods burst from dying ships, only to be swatted from the sky by the merciless pack-led. On the Dauntless, alarms screamed as consoles exploded in showers of sparks, the bridge filling with smoke. Singh gripped the arms of his chair, watching his fleet burn, his people dying by the hundreds to buy the Titan just a few more seconds. The last human ship, the Dauntless's sister vessel, the Valiant, took a direct hit to its reactor. It detonated in a blinding flash, the shockwave rocking the Dauntless. Prometheus, Singh shouted over the chaos, the Godslayer. The AI's voice cut through the din, calm and implacable. Charging complete, Godslayer ready to fire. The Titan emerged from the swirling clouds of the gas giant, its hull glowing with barely contained energy. On its prow, the Godslayer, a railgun the size of a skyscraper, thrummed with power. The pack-led ships, realizing the danger too late, scattered in a desperate attempt to evade. But there was nowhere to run. The Godslayer fired. A lance of pure destruction, a solid beam of hypersonic metal accelerated to a fraction of light speed, tore through space. It caught the Subjugator amidships, slicing through its shields like they weren't even there, punching clean through the hull and out the other side. For a moment the dreadnought hung there, a perfect hole burned through its center. Then it exploded, a miniature sun blooming in the void. The beam continued, spearing a dozen more pack-led ships, leaving a trail of shattered hulks and expanding balls of plasma in its wake. In the space of a heartbeat, a third of the pack-led fleet was simply gone, reduced to cooling debris. On the Dauntless, Singh watched in awe and horror as the Titan began to recharge the Godslayer, the railgun's magnetic coils glowing red-hot. The surviving pack-led ships, reeling from the devastating blow, started to turn, desperate to escape before the ancient weapon could fire again. On the Dauntless's bridge, Singh watched the pack-led ships scatter in disarray as the Titan's Godslayer tore through their fleet. Flashing lights on his console caught his eye, an urgent transmission from Prometheus. Captain Singh, our sensors have detected a hidden pack-led base on the nearby moon of Tharsis. It's protected by a powerful energy shield that prevents the Godslayer from targeting it directly. That base is likely coordinating the pack-led fleet. If we destroy it, we could cripple their command structure. Singh's eyes narrowed. They had to act fast. Understood, Prometheus. Send the coordinates to the transporter room. I'm assembling a strike team. Minutes later, Singh stood in the transporter room, checking the charge on his plasma rifle. His hand-picked squad of Marines stood ready, their faces grim beneath their helmets. "Listen up," Singh barked. "We're going in hot. The Titan's transporters will get us past their shields, but expect heavy resistance. Our objective is the central control room. We plant the charges, blow the base, and get out. Move fast, hit hard. Understood?" A chorus of "Yes, sir," echoed in the room. "Energize." In a shimmer of light, the strike team materialized inside the Pakled base. Alarms blared as startled Pakled soldiers grabbed for their weapons. Singh's team opened fire, plasma bolts searing through the air. They pushed forward, leapfrogging from cover to cover. Singh took point, his rifle spitting blue fire as he cut down Pakled after Pakled. His Marines fanned out, securing intersections and planting charges at load-bearing points. As they neared the control room, resistance intensified. Heavy blast doors slammed shut, forcing them to burn through with plasma torches. Pakled soldiers poured fire down the corridors, forcing the Marines into cover. Singh primed a plasma grenade and hurled it. The explosion tore a hole in the Pakled defenses, and the Marines surged forward. They breached the control room. And there, standing amid the banks of computers and holodisplays, was Emperor Rhaegor himself. His ornate armor gleamed in the emergency lighting, a plasma blade hissing to life in his hand. "You," Rhaegor snarled, recognition dawning on his face. "The human captain, I'll enjoy killing you." Singh raised his rifle. "Not today." They clashed in a furious melee, plasma blade against rifle stock. Around them, Singh's Marines grappled with Rhaegor's elite guard. Consoles shattered, and sparks flew as they fought across the room. Singh ducked a vicious slash, the heat of the blade singeing his hair. He rammed the butt of his rifle into Rhaegor's midsection, doubling the Emperor over. But Rhaegor was fast, his blade licking out, carving a line of fire across Singh's chest. Gritting his teeth against the pain, Singh feinted left, then lunged right. His rifle bucked in his hands, and a plasma bolt punched through Rhaegor's armor, burning into his side. The Emperor staggered, his blade lowering fractionally. It was the opening Singh needed. He charged forward, inside the reach of Rhaegor's blade. They collided, Singh's rifle to Rhaegor's throat. The Emperor's eyes widened in shock and pain as Singh pulled the trigger, the plasma bolt decapitating him in a spray of molten metal and flesh. Singh kicked the Emperor's body away, already spinning to assess the room. His Marines had dispatched the guards, but the timer was ticking down on the charges. "Move back to the extraction point now." They ran, leaping over fallen Pakled as the base shook around them. Blast doors slammed shut behind them, bought precious seconds by the charges they'd planted. They skidded into the extraction zone just as the timer hit 0. The world dissolved in a shimmer of light and re-solidified into the transporter room of the Dauntless. At the same moment, a tremendous shockwave rocked the ship. On the view screen, the moon of Tharsis shattered as the Pakled base imploded, the explosion tearing through the thin crust. On the Titan's bridge, Prometheus's avatar flickered as the AI processed the influx of data. The Pakled fleet was in disarray, their command structure shattered by the loss of Emperor Rhaegor and the destruction of their hidden base. "Captain Singh," Prometheus said, his voice resonating through the comms, "we have a window of opportunity. I recommend an immediate assault on the Pakled homeworld, Pakos Prime. If we strike now, we can end this war." Singh nodded grimly, his face still smeared with blood and grime from the battle on the moon. "Agreed. All ships, set course for Pakos Prime. Prepare for heavy resistance." The ancient fleet, the Titan at its head, leapt into warp, the stars streaking past as they hurtled towards their final confrontation. As they emerged from warp above Pakos Prime, alarms blared across the fleet. A massive orbital defense grid encircled the planet, bristling with energy cannons and shimmering with overlapping shields. The cannons swiveled to target the incoming fleet, their muzzles glowing with building energy. On the Titan's view screen, the grid seemed to fill the sky, an impenetrable wall of firepower. "Those cannons will tear us apart before we even get close," Singh growled. "Prometheus options?" The AI's avatar pulsed, lines of code racing across its surface. "I can disable the grid by uploading a virus into its control systems, but the process will take time, during which the Titan will be vulnerable. We'll need a diversion." Singh didn't hesitate. The human fleet will engage the defenses directly, draw their fire. The Titan will use the opening to get in range and upload the virus. "Captain, your ships won't withstand that firepower for long," Prometheus warned. "We'll buy you the time you need," Singh said firmly. "The Titan is the key to victory. We'll do what we must." He opened a fleet-wide channel. "All human ships, form up on me. We're going in." The battered remnants of the human fleet, a mere handful of ships against the might of the pack-led defenses, accelerated towards the grid. The Titan, engines flaring, began its approach, angling for the nearest control node. The orbital cannons opened fire, lances of incandescent energy slashing through space. The human ships scattered, weaving and dodging, drawing the fire away from the Titan. Explosions bloomed against the void as the cannons found their marks. The human ships returned fire, their weapons impacting uselessly against the grid's shields. On the bridge of the Dauntless, alarms screamed as a cannon blast slammed into the ship's flank. Consoles exploded in showers of sparks, the deck bucking beneath Singh's feet. Singh hauled himself up, blood trickling from a gash on his forehead. He stared at the tactical display, watching the Titan's steady progress towards the control node. They were so close. He opened a ship-wide channel. "All hands abandon ship, get to the escape pods." Ignoring the protests of his bridge crew, Singh sealed his helmet and gripped the helm controls. "I'll keep the Dauntless in the fight. Buy the Titan a little more time. Now go, that's an order." As the last escape pod jettisoned, Singh turned the Dauntless towards the largest orbital cannon, the one pouring the most fire into the Titan's shields. The Dauntless was a wreck, its weapons depleted, engines failing. But it still had mass, and Singh intended to use it. He punched the throttle to full, aiming the Dauntless's prow directly at the cannon's muzzle. The cannon fired, the blast tearing through the Dauntless's hull like tissue paper. Warning lights flashed red across the bridge, the ship's death knell. But Singh held course, gritting his teeth against the pain of his injuries, his vision narrowing to that single point of light. The cannon fired again, point blank. The Dauntless vanished in a flash of light, a miniature sun blossoming in the void, and an instant later slammed into the cannon itself. The resulting explosion tore the cannon apart, a chain reaction that ripped through the surrounding section of the grid. On the Titan's view screen, a patch of darkness appeared in the grid's defenses, a hole punched clean through. And in that moment, Prometheus struck. The AI's virus surged through the grid's systems, an unstoppable tide of code. One by one, the orbital cannons fell silent, their shields collapsing, their power cut. "Upload complete," Prometheus reported, a note of grim satisfaction in his voice. "The grid is offline." With the defenses down, the ancient fleet moved into bombardment position, their weapons locking onto targets far below. Military bases, government centers, weapons factories, all targeted with pinpoint precision. The planetary bombardment began, the ancient ship's advanced weaponry reducing the pack-led war machine to rubble. On the surface, pack-led forces scrambled in chaos, their chain of command in tatters, their defenses crumbling. But even as their cities burned, the pack-led mounted one final desperate gambit. From a hidden silo, a massive ground-based cannon emerged, its barrel pointing skyward. It was a relic of a bygone age, a weapon of last resort, and it was aiming directly at the Titan. The cannon fired, a lance of energy that tore through the atmosphere, straight towards the ancient ship's heart. On the Titan's bridge, alarms blared in warning. The ship's shields, still recovering from the orbital grid's onslaught, were dangerously low. Prometheus's avatar flickered, the AI's vast mind racing through possibilities and probabilities. There was no time to evade, no way to boost the shields in time. The Titan, the key to humanity's victory, was about to be destroyed. The ground-based cannon fired, a thunderous roar shaking the very foundations of the planet. The immense projectile, a solid slug of hyperdense metal, accelerated to a significant fraction of light speed, hurtled towards the Titan with terrifying precision. On the bridge of the ancient ship, alarms blared and warning lights flashed red. Prometheus, the ship's AI, diverted every available scrap of power to the shields, but they were still reeling from the orbital defense grid's onslaught. The projectile slammed into the Titan's weakened defenses, the impact resonating through the hull like the tolling of a gargantuan bell. The Titan tumbled, knocked out of orbit by the sheer force of the blow. It spun end over end, its artificial gravity failing as it plummeted towards the planet's surface. Inside, crew members were tossed about like ragdolls, slamming into bulkheads and consoles. The ship's hull glowed cherry red as it hit the atmosphere, friction turning the air into plasma. Prometheus fought to regain control, diverting power from life support to the maneuvering thrusters. But it was like trying to steer an avalanche. The ground rushed up to meet them, a patchwork of ruined cities and blasted landscapes, the scars of the orbital bombardment. The Titan hit the ground with the force of a small asteroid, carving a deep furrow into the earth. Soil and rock sprayed high into the air, raining back down on the ship's battered hull. Inside, the impact was like the hand of an angry god, smashing everything not bolted down. As the dust settled, the Titan lay half-buried in the crater of its own making. Smoke rose from rents in its armor, sparks cascaded from ruptured power conduits. In the eerie silence that followed, the only sound was the groan of tortured metal. Then, with the inevitability of carrion birds, the pack-led forces converged on the crash site. Tanks and artillery emerged from hidden bunkers, trundling across the ruined landscape. Infantry poured from armored personnel carriers, their weapons trained on the downed ship. They surrounded the Titan like jackals around a wounded lion, pounding its hull with a relentless barrage of cannon fire and missiles. The ancient ship's armor, designed to withstand the rigors of space and time, began to buckle under the onslaught. Inside the Titan, Prometheus assessed the damage with the cold logic of an AI. Main power was offline, the engines reduced to slag, weapon systems were inoperable, the ship's mighty arsenal rendered impotent. They were, in every sense of the word, defenseless. But Prometheus had not survived the eons by being inflexible. The AI began to divert power from the ship's secondary systems, routing it all to the reactor core. It was a desperate plan, one that could just as easily destroy the Titan as save it. But there was no choice. As the reactor's output climbed past critical levels, Prometheus shunted the excess energy into the ship's hull, turning it into a giant capacitor. The pack-led, so focused on their prey, didn't notice the change until it was too late. Prometheus released the pent-up charge, the reactor energy creating a massive electromagnetic pulse. The EMP washed over the pack-led forces like an invisible tidal wave, shorting out their electronics and rendering their weapons inert. War machines stuttered to a halt, as if turned to stone, their circuits fried. Soldiers reeled back as if struck, their comms units exploding in showers of sparks beside their ears. The battlefield, which moments before had been a cacophony of destruction, fell eerily silent. In the sudden stillness, a hatch on the Titan's hull burst open, expelled by the last dregs of power. From the smoking opening emerged a squad of battle-hardened Marines, their armor scorched and dented, but their weapons held at the ready. At their head was Sergeant Reeves, a grizzled veteran who had seen more than his fair share of combat. He surveyed the stunned pack-led forces with a grim smile, then turned to his squad. "Prometheus says that cannon is our priority target," he growled, his voice rough as gravel. "We take it out or none of our ships up there stand a chance. Now move out and stay alert. These bastards won't stay shocked forever." The Marines fanned out, moving through the rubble with practiced efficiency. They engaged the scattered pockets of pack-led resistance with ruthless precision, their weapons barking in the eerie quiet left by the EMP. They fought their way towards the massive ground cannon, visible in the distance like a monolith of destruction. As they drew closer, the pack-led resistance intensified, the soldiers rallying around their prized weapon. Reeves led his squad into the labyrinth of maintenance tunnels beneath the cannon, following Prometheus's guidance. The tunnels were dark and claustrophobic, echoing with the distant sounds of battle above. As they moved deeper into the facility, planting explosive charges at key structural points, Reeves couldn't shake the feeling that they were walking into the belly of the beast. But he pushed the thought aside, focusing on the mission. They had to succeed. Failure was not an option. The fate of humanity, the fate of the ancient fleet rested on their shoulders, and Sergeant Reeves had never been one to shirk his duty, no matter the odds. The tunnels beneath the cannon were a labyrinth of shadows and echoes, the only light coming from the Marines' helmet lamps. Sergeant Reeves led the way, his rifle at the ready, every sense on high alert. Behind him, Private Jensen and the rest of the squad followed in tense silence, their footsteps ringing on the metal grating. Suddenly, a burst of plasma fire erupted from the darkness ahead, sizzling past Reeves's head. "Contact front," he yelled, diving for cover behind a support column. The squad scattered, taking up defensive positions as more plasma bolts seared the air. Reeves peeked around the column, spotting a group of pack-led soldiers advancing down the tunnel, their weapons spitting deadly energy. "Engage!" he ordered, opening fire with his own rifle. The tunnel erupted into a storm of light and noise as the two forces traded shots, plasma and tracer rounds ricocheting off the walls. Reeves saw one of his men go down, a smoking hole in his chest. He gritted his teeth and kept firing, taking down two pack-led with well-aimed shots. Just as the pack-led were starting to fall back, a sudden blast rocked the tunnel. Reeves was thrown off his feet, his ears ringing. He shook his head, trying to clear his vision, and saw Private Jensen lying on the ground, his leg a mangled ruin. "Plasma mine," Jensen gasped, his face white with shock. "I didn't see it until—" Reeves crawled over to him, assessing the damage. It was bad, really bad. Jensen needed medical attention fast, but they were still deep in enemy territory, and the clock was ticking on their mission. Reeves made a decision, the kind that kept him up at night. "Jensen, I need you to stay here, guard our rear. We'll leave you with some of the explosives in case any pack-led try to flank us." Jensen nodded, his jaw tight with pain. "I understand, Sarge. I'll hold them off for as long as I can." Reeves clasped his shoulder, meeting his eyes. "You're a damn good Marine, Jensen. We'll come back for you, I promise." With a heavy heart, Reeves led the rest of the squad deeper into the tunnels, leaving Jensen behind in the flickering shadows. They pushed forward, engaging pack-led patrols and automated turrets, the air thick with the ozone scent of plasma. Finally, they reached the central chamber, a cavernous space dominated by the cannon's massive power core. It pulsed with a sickly green light, protected by a shimmering energy shield. "Charges won't do shit against that," Corporal Hayes said, eyeing the shield warily. Reeves studied the control panel, his mind racing. "The shield's drawing too much power. We need to overload it, create a feedback loop." He turned to his squad, his face grim. "I'll stay behind, trigger the detonation manually. The rest of you get clear, that's an order." The Marines hesitated, loyalty warring with duty in their eyes. But they knew the score, knew what was at stake. One by one they clasped Reeves's hand, their grips fierce and final. As his squad retreated back into the tunnels, Reeves set the charges, his hands steady despite the weight in his chest. He was just about to arm the detonator when a hissing sound made him spin around, rifle raised. Ferry pack-led commander stood there, flanked by a squad of elite guards. Their armor was black and gleaming, their weapons aimed squarely at Reeves. "Surrender, human," the commander spat, his voice distorted by his helmet speaker. "You have no chance." Reeves just smiled, a hard feral thing. "I like my odds." He charged, a battle cry on his lips. The Packled opened fire, plasma bolts searing past him, but Reeves was a blur of motion. He slammed into the first guard, his rifle butt crunching into the alien's faceplate. They fought hand to hand, a brutal, desperate melee. Reeves was a whirlwind of strikes and blocks, his every move fueled by a lifetime of training and a fierce, unyielding will. He took down 3 guards, their bones snapping under his blows. But the Packled commander was fast, his plasma blade a blur of light. It slashed across Reeves's chest, burning through his armor, and he fell to one knee, blood seeping between his fingers. The commander loomed over him, his blade raised for the killing blow. "Last chance, human, beg for mercy and I might grant you a quick death." Reeves spat blood, his hand tightening around the detonator. "I've got a better idea." He thumbed the trigger, and the world went white. The explosives detonated, the blast waves slamming into Reeves like a hammer of the gods. He felt a searing heat, a pressure that crushed the air from his lungs. But even as the darkness closed in, he held on to one final defiant thought. Above, on the planet's war-torn surface, the ground heaved and buckled as the cannon's power core detonated. The massive gun, a symbol of Packled might, collapsed in on itself, consumed by a rising fireball that set the sky ablaze. Debris rained down on the Packled forces, their formations shattering into chaos as they fled the destruction. In orbit, the ancient fleet witnessed the cannon's demise, the explosion blooming like a second sun on the planet's surface. Prometheus, the Titan's AI, seized the moment, directing the fleet's fire with ruthless precision. The Packled orbital defenses, already weakened by the EMP and the loss of the ground cannon, crumbled under the onslaught. The ancient ship's weapons tore through hulls and melted battle stations, the sky above Pacos Prime turning to a storm of fire and shrapnel. And on the planet below, in the shattered remains of the cannon's underground chamber, Sergeant Reeves lay still, his hand still clenched around the detonator. His face was peaceful, the ghost of a smile on his lips. He had given his life for his squad, for his species. He had held the line to the bitter end. But the war was far from over. As the ancient fleet pressed their advantage, as the Pack-led forces reeled in disarray, a new threat was stirring in the depths of space, an enemy older and more powerful than any the galaxy had ever known, drawn by the conflict like sharks to blood. With the Pack-led forces in disarray and their defenses crumbling, the ancient fleet prepared for a final, decisive strike against the planet's capital city. The remnants of the Pack-led leadership had retreated to their last bastion, determined to make a final stand. As the fleet moved into position above the war-torn city, alarms blared across the bridge of the Titan. "Admiral Singh," the sensor officer called out, his voice taut with tension. "We're detecting a massive energy surge from the central citadel." Singh leaped to his feet, his eyes locked on the view screen. There, rising from the heart of the city like a malevolent spire, was the source of the energy surge, an ancient, long-forgotten weapon of the Pack-leds, a doomsday device capable of annihilating the planet and the entire star system. "By the gods," Singh breathed, his mind racing. He turned to Prometheus, the Titan's AI. "What is that thing?" "Unknown," Prometheus replied, its avatar flickering with concern. "But the energy readings are off the scale. If that device is activated, it will destroy everything within 100 light-years." Singh clenched his fists, his jaw tightening. "Then we have no choice. We have to destroy it before the Pack-leds can use it." He turned to his bridge crew, his voice ringing with authority. "Prepare a strike team, our most skilled soldiers, equipped with our best weapons and armor. We're going in." Minutes later, Singh stood in the Titan's armory, clad in advanced power armor, a pulse rifle in his hands. Around him, his hand-picked team checked their weapons and gear, their faces grim with determination. "Listen up," Singh barked, his voice amplified by his helmet speakers. "Our target is the central citadel. The Pack-leds have some kind of doomsday weapon in there, and we're going to take it out before they can use it." He met each soldier's gaze, his eyes hard as steel. "This is going to be the fight of our lives. The Pack-leds will throw everything they have at us, but we're not going to let them win. We're going to end this war, here and now. With a chorus of "Yes, sir," the strike team boarded the dropship, the craft's engines roaring as it launched from the Titan's hangar bay. As they descended through the planet's atmosphere, the dropship rocked with turbulence, the hull groaning under the strain. Singh gripped his rifle, his mind focused on the mission ahead. The dropship touched down on a war-torn plaza, its ramp slamming down. Singh was the first out, his rifle at the ready. "Move out," he ordered. The strike team fanned out, advancing through the rubble-strewn streets. The once gleaming city was now a shattered ruin, its buildings reduced to twisted skeletons of metal and glass. Suddenly plasma fire erupted from the windows of a nearby building. Singh dove for cover, his rifle spitting blue fire. "Contact left," he yelled. The strike team engaged the Pakled defenders, the air thick with the scent of ozone and scorched metal. Singh led the charge, his rifle barking as he cut down Pakled after Pakled. They fought their way deeper into the city, the resistance growing fiercer with every block. Pakled soldiers poured from buildings and side streets, their weapons spitting deadly energy. But Singh's team was relentless, their advance unstoppable. They cut through the Pakled lines like a plasma torch through steel, leaving a trail of broken bodies in their wake. As they neared the central citadel, a towering fortress of black metal and pulsing energy shields, a group of Pakled scientists emerged from a side street, their hands raised in surrender. "Wait," one of them called out, his voice quavering with fear. "You don't understand. The device, it's not a weapon." Singh kept his rifle trained on the scientists, his eyes narrowing. "Explain." The scientist swallowed, his face pale. "It's a portal generator. It's designed to transport the entire planet and its inhabitants to another dimension, a place where we can rebuild our empire, free from human interference." Singh's blood ran cold. A portal to another dimension. The implications were staggering. He turned to his team, his voice grim. "Change of plans. We're not just going to destroy that device. We're going to make sure the Pakleds can never use it, ever again." He faced the scientists, his rifle unwavering. "You're going to tell us everything about that portal, how it works, how to shut it down, and if you try anything, I'll personally send you through it, piece by piece." Singh motioned to his team. "Secure them. We move on the citadel now." With the scientists in tow, the strike team fought their way to the citadel's gates, the massive doors shuddering under a barrage of plasma fire. Singh placed a breaching charge, the explosive hissing as it burned through the reinforced metal. Inside, the citadel was a labyrinth of corridors and chambers, all leading to the central control room where the portal generator was housed. Singh's team fought through waves of Pakled defenders, the scientists guiding them through the twisting passageways. Finally, they reached the control room, a cavernous chamber dominated by a massive pulsing machine, the portal generator. Before it stood the last surviving members of the Pakled High Council, their ornate robes stained with blood and ash. "You're too late, humans," one of them snarled, his hand hovering over a glowing control panel. "The portal is ready. With a single command, we will transport our entire world to a new dimension where we will rise again, stronger than ever." Singh raised his rifle, his finger tightening on the trigger. "Not on my watch." The room exploded into chaos, plasma bolts crisscrossing the air, as Singh's team engaged the High Council and their elite guards. Singh charged forward, his rifle blazing, cutting down Pakleds left and right. But the Pakleds were fanatics, fighting with a desperate fury born of a belief in their own righteous cause. One by one, Singh's soldiers fell, their armor scorched and shattered by plasma fire. Soon only Singh remained, standing alone before the portal generator and the last of the High Council. His armor was battered, his rifle's power cell blinking red, but his eyes burned with an unquenchable fire. "It's over," he growled, leveling his rifle at the Pakled leader's head. "Surrender or die." The Pakled laughed, a harsh, grating sound. "You think you've won, human? You think destroying this portal will end us? We are the Pakled Empire. We will never surrender." His hand slammed down on the control panel, and the portal generator hummed to life, its energy field pulsing with an eerie blue light. Singh felt a strange tugging sensation, as if the very fabric of reality was being pulled towards the swirling vortex. He looked around, seeing the bodies of his fallen comrades, the shattered remnants of the Pakled leadership, and in that moment he knew what he had to do. "For Earth," he whispered, and charged towards the portal's control systems, firing his rifle with every step. Singh charged through the ruins of the citadel, his rifle spitting plasma at the Pakled defenders. The control room was just ahead, the portal generator pulsing with an eerie blue light. Suddenly a massive figure emerged from the shadows, the Pakled High Counselor, a towering brute of cybernetics and armor. In his hands, a devastating plasma cannon whined with building energy. "Too late, human," the High Counselor snarled. "The portal is activating. Soon our empire will rise again in a new dimension, free from your meddling." Singh raised his rifle, his finger tightening on the trigger. "Not if I have anything to say about it." They clashed in a brutal melee, plasma bolts and sparks flying as they traded blows. The High Counselor was immensely strong, his cybernetic enhancements giving him an edge. But Singh fought with the desperate strength of a man with nothing left to lose. Blow after blow they battered each other, their armor cracking and shattering. Singh's helmet was torn away, blood streaming down his face. The High Counselor's cannon arms sparked and fizzled, damaged beyond repair. With a final desperate lunge, Singh tackled the High Counselor, sending them both crashing to the ground. They grappled, rolling across the debris-strewn floor until Singh managed to pin the massive Pakled, his rifle pressed against the alien's throat. "Yield!" Singh growled, his finger hovering over the trigger. The High Counselor laughed, a gurgling, half-mechanical sound. "Never. The portal is opening. You've lost." Singh's eyes widened as he looked up at the portal generator. The pulsing light had intensified, the air around it shimmering like a heat haze. He could feel the pull, the inexorable draw of another dimension. He looked back down at the High Counselor, his jaw clenching. He could end this now, put a plasma bolt through the alien's skull. But it wouldn't stop the portal. There was only one way. Singh staggered to his feet, leaving the High Counselor lying in the rubble. He limped towards the portal, each step an agony, his armor hanging off him in shattered pieces. Memories flashed through his mind. Roger's sacrifice, the retribution vanishing in a blaze of light, Captain Reeves detonating the charges in the cannon's core, the countless soldiers who had given their lives to bring them to this moment. He thought of Earth, of the billions of lives hanging in the balance, of the future that hung by a thread. Singh reached the edge of the portal, the energy washing over him in waves, setting his nerves on fire. He could see into it now, a swirling maelstrom of light and color, an alien vista that no human eyes had ever beheld. He knew what he had to do, the only way to disrupt the portal, to overload it and shut it down. With a final defiant roar, Singh leapt into the portal, his body disintegrating as the immense energies surged through him. He felt himself coming apart, atom by atom, his consciousness fragmenting into a million shards of light. The portal, destabilized by Singh's sacrifice, began to collapse in on itself. The generator exploded, a blinding flash of light that consumed the control room, the citadel, the entire city. From orbit, the ancient fleet watched as a massive implosion tore through the Pakled homeworld, the shockwave rippling out across the planet's surface. Cities crumbled, forests ignited, oceans boiled away into steam. And then silence, a final terrible stillness, as the Pakled Empire was reduced to nothing more than ash and echoes. On the bridge of the Titan, the surviving human forces stared at the viewscreen in stunned disbelief. They had won. The war was over, but the cost. As the fleet began the long journey back to Earth, a sense of hollowness permeated the ships. They had achieved victory, but it tasted like ashes in their mouths. The scars of the conflict, they knew, would linger for generations. On the surface of the ruined planet, a lone figure stumbled through the wreckage of the citadel. Corporal Jensen, the last surviving member of Singh's strike team, his armor blackened and his face streaked with blood and grime. In his hands he clutched a tattered scrap of fabric, the flag of Earth, the banner under which they had fought and died. Jensen limped to the top of a pile of rubble, the highest point in the devastated landscape. With trembling hands he raised the flag, planting it firmly in the ash and dust. As the flag unfurled in the wind, Jensen felt a single tear roll down his cheek. For his fallen comrades, for Admiral Singh, for the untold millions who had perished in the war. And for the future, the uncertain path that lay ahead for the survivors, the ones who would have to carry on in a galaxy forever changed by the conflict. Jensen stared out over the ruins of the Pakled homeworld, the flag fluttering above him, a small splash of color in the bleak grey landscape. The war was over, but the fight for survival, for the future of humanity, had only just begun. You have reached the end of the story. If you enjoyed this story and want to support us, please leave a like and subscribe to our channel, and for every comment that says 88, I will heart every single one of them. Thank you for your time.